Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com, thechrisvossshow.com. Hey, we're coming here with another great podcast. Thanks for tuning in. You guys are a great audience. We certainly appreciate you. Be sure to go to iTunes, Google Play, and tune in app so you can take and subscribe to the show and download the podcast. Be sure to tell your friends, neighbors, dogs, relatives, mistresses, cats, cockroaches about the Chris Voss Show and get them to subscribe. Hit that bell notification on YouTube so you get all the notifications. Then go to patreon.com/Chris Voss. Today, I have a really cool podcast because I have the 2015 Podcast Hall of Fame. It's Todd Cochran, the CEO of Raw Voice, Blubrry. He is a podcast statistics and podcasting advertising expert, author, and podcaster as well. Who knew? Welcome to the show, Todd. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Chris. I'm doing great and looking forward to coming to your city here in about a month or so.
That's right, for the big CES show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
I'm trying to get our friend Gary Shapiro on the show to do a promo because I can't really hang out with him during CES because he's busy with all the Fortune 500 people.
The big guy.
But hopefully we can get him on the thing. So my podcast, The Chris Voss Show, is brought to you with the services of Blubrry that you are the king of. And without you, I could not have a podcast and integrate it with my WordPress. So not worthy.
Oh, thank you for being a customer and supporting us. I appreciate it and saying nice things. It really is appreciated.
Yeah, I don't know how, and then I don't know how I found you guys years ago. I think I was just searching or I asked some people years ago, how do I do this and integrate this with my WordPress and see what other people do and picked up your guys' service. And I wish I'd spent more time podcasting and been off and on over the years, especially as some of the different life events have affected me. But back to podcasting, and yeah, if it wasn't for you guys just make my world go round. So tell people who don't know about you. Let's discover who you are for the audience that doesn't know and should know what you're about and your companies.
Yeah, sure. So really, the company launched back in 2005, and we were in the early days really focused on podcast advertising. I really, when I launched the company, it was kind of on a whim. I was doing advertising with GoDaddy, and they said, "Hey, do you know anyone that else would like to do advertising?" And I kind of thought, "Yeah, I do." And so and I actually reached out within my own podcast for some people to work with, and from that, I launched a company, and we've evolved the product over years. But to be honest with you, we built the tools to begin with for us, and then it just kind of turned into full blown service offerings. So it's kind of taken a life of its own. I think we're up to 15 total employees. Not everyone's full time. We have some contract folks, but no, full service company. Everything from podcast hosting, WordPress sites to advertising to media statistics. Our media statistics is really what got us off the ground because there was no way to measure podcasts in the early days, and we had to have that to do the ad deals that we were doing. But today, a little over 45,000 podcasters use our stats. And then we have companies like ESPN, ABC, Moody Radio, some companies out of the UK I can't say that all use our stats. And so it continues to be a big anchor for the company.
Yeah, this is coming out of some hiatus of doing stuff with my dogs. Being able to sit and watch my podcast statistics every day come across the email and be like, how many people downloaded? It's been pretty amazing. And it's actually the thing that inspired me to get back into it was seeing that there were still people just constantly download the old episodes. I'm like, people still listening to this crap?
Right.
But I think on your LinkedIn, you guys, it says you have up to 75,000 audio and video content creators.
Yeah, that's the total. And some of them are purely just using PowerPress, and they don't even use our service. Wow. They use competitors' service, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's really weird. But I mean, technically, I'd want the statistics from you guys and everything, since you guys are the ones managing the WordPress. But one of the things I didn't know, because I guess I was being an idiot, not paying attention to your uh, emails and stuff, was I didn't know when you guys added on Google Play. And so I think about a year ago I discovered it, and I was just goofing around in my WordPress, banging buttons, and I'm like, holy crap, there's Google Play. This whole time I could be distributing to Google Play, and so I got that going. And so now, yeah, I'm on iTunes, I'm on Google Play, I'm moving up in the world, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's amazing where you can send the show now. I've got some devices sitting here on the desk. I don't want to trigger them, but with that Amazon device, you can basically play podcasts via TuneIn
Yeah,
on it, and then the Google device, it will. I don't know where it pulls podcasts from. I am assuming Google Play, but it's almost like a trick to get it to do it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. You can do it with these. You can get podcasts everywhere now.
yeah, it's really, it's kind of a shame for a while that I kind of gave it up as a stupid stepchild, because I tried to do it really early on, and I was trying to do different little radio stuff early on, and the internet just wasn't working well, and the speeds and everything else, back in 2009, 2010, and then I kind of felt like the medium was dying, and it seems like people were doing everything else, and then so I kind of went to sleep on it, and then all of a sudden I woke up, and it's like everyone's downloading podcasts, and the speeds have finally caught up, and people are just really into data, and I just really missed it. In
It's
fact, I
really
remember when Adam Carolla was on the radio, and I used to listen to Adam Carolla in the morning. And then I remember when he lost his job, when they just laid him off, and I think they went to a music format, and he just went out and created, I think, what is, you probably know better than I, the #1 podcast in the world, technically.
well. I think for a while he held that designation, but there's a lot of huge shows right now, and of
Oh,
course you
really?
got celebrities coming in like Oprah that are blowing it out,
Damn,
and
Oprah.
but believe it or not, the shows out of Brazil, some of the biggest shows in Brazil would make some of the absolute biggest shows in the United States look tiny.
Serious? Wow.
Yeah, there's some shows over there that are doing million listeners an episode. It's really pretty incredible how podcasting has become international. There's a show over there that does like 6 hours, and you think, who does a podcast for 6 hours? But what it turns out is that this show is heavily listened to by people in factories. They tune in every day as they're working in the factories and with their mobile devices. So it's like, wow, it's pretty incredible how the medium has
Six
changed.
hours. And here Howard Stern complains about 4.
It's you think about doing when we go live at Vegas, to stay on point, to
Mhm.
be able to be effective and not talk like a bumbling idiot. 2-3 hours in the chair is about all I can handle personally. If I do more than that, I feel like I'm starting talking to myself.
Yeah, and you got to have a guest at that point. I think there's some
Yeah.
people to talk to, don't you, to kill out that amount of time.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
what I want to do too is introduce you to people that aren't familiar with the services, because I have people come to me all the time and they go, "Oh, this podcast thing sounds like a lot of work," and I'm like, "No, here's how you do it, and this is really simple. You get your WordPress set up, you get Blueberry services, and boom, you're done, pretty much. I mean, there's a few different things in between, but you guys make it really easy to get them up and get them going, and I mean, I'm a complete idiot when it comes to the technology. You wouldn't know it, but I'm not great with the back end sort of stuff. I end up wanting to kill people half the time if I have to do back end work. But you guys make it really simple for someone to take a WordPress, put the plugin in, and then just set up the parameters and stuff. And you got to go apply at iTunes, I think it is, and Google Play, but that's pretty easy. But once it's all in there, it's just done, and it's just like a machine. I don't have to deal with it. It's just so awesome.
One thing is our philosophy from the beginning really is that we believe in people building your brand. You know, you've got the Chris Voss Show here, you've got your own domain, you've got a location for it. So and we understand that not everyone has that vision initially. They think, well, maybe I just want to do a show and see what happens here. So we developed our entire line of services to basically allow folks to start shows with a basic free WordPress site that would be at theirshow.blueberry.net. It comes included with the hosting plan. And then when they get a few shows in and say, man, I got something going on here, I need to build a brand, I need to get a domain name, they can then assign a domain name to the PowerPress site and basically build their whole ecosystem of their show from within our service offering. So I told the guys when we were developing, PowerPress came first, and it plugged into people that already had WordPress sites. And again, when we developed PowerPress, it was because there was a plugin that had been abandoned. We decided we needed to step up, make sure the community had a place to basically a tool to use. So, and then as the product evolved, we said, well, let's add hosting to this and we'll tie in the stats. And then the PowerPress sites piece came in over the last couple of years. So a podcaster, an aspiring podcaster today can come to blueberry.com and for $12 a month, get signed up, get pro stats, get a free WordPress, a basic WordPress site, and they're hosting enough to do about 100 minutes of a show every month. And then, of course, there's tiered levels of storage that they can buy on a monthly basis. But what we really want to do is, and I told Angelo, who's my CIO, I told him, I said, let's do the easy button of podcasting. Let's get them up and running. So really, from the time you hit purchase, it takes us a few minutes to provision the site and then send you an email. From that point forward, about 15 minutes, you can be ready to rock and roll. All you really got to do then is record the audio. And the beauty of the way the system we made is, if you're familiar with WordPress, you still go in and write your blog post like you normally do, put your links in, your graphics, all that stuff. And then we have a episode box where you just click and you drag and drop your media file into the uploader. It uploads to our service, and then you hit publish. So I call it post, upload, publish. It's as simple as that. Once you get started, now you do have to go, and once you publish your first episode, you just need to submit to iTunes. But that's really, again, we give you a destinations box that basically gives you the link on where to go to submit all this. So we try to make it easy as possible. But Chris, a lot of people are really technically challenged these days.
Yeah.
And so we spend a lot of time helping folks. So we're the only company that has phone support. So you can actually call someone Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 Eastern. And then I've got 3 support people, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and a guy in between. So we're there to help folks that are getting started that need that extra, am I doing this right? Or did I put this information in correctly? But, it's pretty easy to get started podcasting today. We've tried to make it so that podcasters will have potential new podcasters will be on a route using best practices, because you don't want to have your site reside forever at some service.blueberry.net or some show.blueberry.net. You ultimately want to have your own domain name and basically graduate your show to building a brand and building an empire, which you've done.
Yeah. And I've seen you talk about that before on Facebook, where you talk about how, build your own brand, put it on your own sites. And when you put it onto their sites, you're kind of bound to them. And if hopefully they stay in business or whatever, they don't screw you. But yeah, that's the other thing I love about your plugin. I can continue doing my blogging. I continue doing everything the Chris Voss Show wants to do on the side. And then I just make a normal post like I do of anything. And then I just go in the bottom and fill in the links and all that sort of stuff and hit publish, and boom, it's on iTunes and Google Play. And it's the greatest brainless function I think I have just about all my technology. I love it.
And I think too is that the ability, and here's the thing that I told the guys, I said, okay, so God forbid something happens and we go out of business. Let's say I go away tomorrow. Because you've got your own .com, you've got your own brand, the plugin works independent. Like if I unplug everything, I turn the servers off tomorrow, only thing you have to do is find a new place to host your media.
Mhm.
Everything still works on your site. You still got your feed. You still have your blog. You're going to have to find a new home for the audio. Now, I'm not going anywhere. We're profitable and we're doing well, but that's the insurance policy that I basically tell podcasters. I can go away tomorrow and you're still good. You can't
Mhm.
say that for all my competitors, but my competitors have a different model. They have a different philosophy.
Yeah.
My team was podcasters. We were all content creators. So, no way you're touching my brand. My brand is king. So that's how we built the company, is to allow individuals to build their brands and not ours.
And that's real important to think about that, like you say. In fact, there's one service, it's an audio service that I know a lot of friends did podcasts on, and they were recently almost on the chopping block. I think they got
Oh,
their funding. I can't remember the name of the company though. You probably do.
well, SoundCloud was on the chopping block.
Yeah, SoundCloud. There we go.
Yeah.
And so all my friends have put all their stuff on SoundCloud. I'm like, hey man, that thing might be going out of business. You might want to take a look at that.
And some of them
So
had their entire platform on SoundCloud. They don't even have a site to
yeah,
send people to. And I'm like,
yeah,
really? You're going to spend all this time building something it's okay to host over there. And I want you to host at Blueberry. But if you're going to go over there and host it, at least at a minimum,
yeah.
have your own site where you can recover if someone goes out of business.
I think on YouTube I have like 3,300 videos, and if they ever went out of business and said, "Hey, you got to download this crap. We're closing the door," I'd just be like, "Holy, what do I?" I mean, it would be a freaking nightmare. Um, and yeah, so yeah, this I had a lot of friends that did SoundCloud, and I was like, why did you do that? That's doesn't make any sense. And now you're going to eat it. I've been burned by what, MySpace now, Google Plus.
Yeah, we've seen a number of, and this time of year, sadly, I've been in this space again since 2000. Well, I started my podcast in 2004, but we've seen companies like 3 days before Christmas say, "Oh, by the way, we're shutting down on Christmas Day," and people are
Gosh.
already out on Christmas vacation, and they pull the plug on them as a Christmas
Wow.
present, and you think, what a worse time to have a show and people come back, after vacation and they're like, "Hey man, your podcast is gone." And, what panic would ensue from that.
So they can go to blueberry.com, and there's no E's, I think, in the Blueberry, isn't
Yeah.
there?
BLUBRRY.com.
There you go. And they can sign up. They can go through the process, set up your WordPress, set up your brand. I don't know why I'm encouraging competitors right now. But there's a podcast for everyone. It's kind of like the 90s there when there was a magazine and a talk show for everyone. Now there's a podcast for everyone pretty much.
And the best thing is even if there's someone doing a show that you're thinking about doing a topic like yours, your voice is unique.
Yeah.
And I've always tell folks, people, I have some podcasters that'll email me, say, "Todd, I've been doing my show for 3 months and I've only got like 400 listeners." And I'm like, all right, so you've just started something brand new for the first time. You're just like a new job. You're learning, you're finding your voice, you're finding your battle rhythm. How many people does your boss get to talk to on a daily basis? And most people say, well, 9, 10, 12. How many people, everyone in a regular JLB has a supervisor unless they are the CEO.
Mhm.
But I'm like, you're reaching more people on a weekly show than your boss reaches. I said, and you have more influence. So I tell podcasters, it doesn't matter what size of an audience you have. It's about, learning the craft and putting out great content and building an audience over time. There's no shortcuts. A guy like you, Chris, you've got this huge following, you're well set up. But someone that's brand new, what do they have to build? They have to build their reputation,
Mhm.
their authority. They have to get their social stuff. So all that stuff is work.
Build
So
an audience. Yeah.
you have to build an audience, and you have to do the grind and do the
Yeah.
time to build it out. My show, very few people know this, but the tech show I do twice a week, Geek News Central at geeknewscentral.com, pays my salary, I actually take no salary from Raw Voice Blueberry. Now we get a stipend every month for being one of the company owners, but my largely livelihood is paid for by my podcast. So I'm in the trenches doing the show, to make sure my livelihood is
Mhm.
met. And it is possible, but did that happen in the beginning? I was maybe could buy lunch with the first money that I made with my show, but later on, I'm able to sustain my lifestyle here in Hawaii with my podcast.
And Hawaii isn't cheap, from what I understand, because we have to ship
Oh,
everything over to you guys,
yeah, it's crazy. And
keep you guys fed and stuff over there.
as I was telling you before we started the show, if my wife would agree, I would have the moving truck here tomorrow, and I'd be out of here. So
Is your wife is your wife a fan of spam meat?
Spam is universal to Hawaii. Yes,
Yeah, I've
spam
heard that's really big there.
Yeah, it's big, and it's not something that's not necessarily carried on our cupboard, but yeah, it's a Hawaii. It's actually bigger in Guam, believe it or not, than
There
Hawaii.
is.
But
Wow,
yeah,
what's going on over there?
yeah, and yeah, they make it all kinds of weird ways.
Yeah, you guys are funny that way. So basically, if someone wants to set up their podcast, they can go to blueberry.com. They can download the thing, set up your WordPress. Don't do a WordPress.com thing. Set up your own domain. It's so cheap nowadays with GoDaddy or
Yep.
whoever host you want to take and do. They all seem to be fairly cheap. You set up your WordPress, you put in the plugin, and you just fill out. And what's great is you guys give an idiot like me all the stuff in the plugin menu, and it's just like, okay, we'll just fill in these boxes and do the thing, and the instructions are right there. When I recently just set it up on Google Play, it was real easy to do. It was like a no-brainer. I think the hardest part was just waiting for Google Play to approve it. Once I put in the application, it took them like 2 or 3 days, I think it was, but no big deal.
Yeah,
But
the key thing is you just have to have your first episode published. You can't you can't submit without an episode. So do my show's coming soon. Do a 2-minute audio file of your show coming, and then when you get listed, then you can launch if you want to have a launch strategy. Yeah,
and it's interesting. It's interesting how it goes. What in your experience? Because you probably have most of anybody I know. I don't know anybody who's like a podcasting, the head of podcasting stuff. So, I mean, what makes a great podcast? What are maybe some aspects that you think are successful aspects people should shoot for?
Key is being engaging, be entertaining. Don't be boring. And if you can be a storyteller, that's what it's really all about. If you're a good storyteller and you're the guy or gal that people gather around to hear the latest gossip, or if you can keep people on a cliffhanger, and if you're a good communicator, that's really the key here. But I often tell people, if you are feeling a little sleepy before you do a show, you better go get yourself a Red Bull or do a 5-hour energy, drink 5 of those before you do your podcast, and be up and ready to rock. I do this Saturday morning show with Rob Greenlee. That's the New Media Show, and we start here at 7 a.m. local. And man, I'm going to tell you, it's like, what did I have this morning? I had a big cup of coffee and a shower before the show. But yeah, it's you got to be ready to rock. So I think the key is to be engaging and also be authentic, because Chris, we're in people's heads, man. They're plugged in with their earbuds, and there's nothing more intimate than what we're speaking to them directly right now. So if you've got a listener that has been with you for a while and you try to BS them, they're going to smell a rat in a hurry. It's just, for those of us that have significant others, there's very hard to get away with really anything because they can smell when you're up to something, and the audience is the same exact way.
Yeah, they definitely can, especially when you're spending as much time as you do with them and stuff. But now you have me thinking about how I'm in people's heads. What can I do with that power?
It is amazing though, because especially if they trust you, if they trust what you say and the advice that you give them, when you tell them, okay, for example, let's just any phone, and you tell them, this phone sucks. Do not buy this phone. You are going to have huge influence on their future purchasing position. Whereas if you tell them, this memory stick is the best memory stick I've ever had, and here's why, then they're going to go out and buy that product because Chris said it was the best.
Yeah.
But if they get it and it sucks,
then they hate me.
You're going to hear about it.
I hear about it on YouTube. Believe me, they leave it in the comments.
Yeah. So, you have to just be honest with them. Like, last night I was playing with a product from Azuli, and it was a little mini desktop PC, and I wrote a review on it on my blog. And this thing was awesome. For its purpose, for what it did, I was totally jazzed to install it and put it in my media center, in my living room. So, I shared that enthusiasm in the blog post, and I'll talk about it in the podcast. Now, how many of these will they sell? They'll probably sell a lot of these because I recommended it.
Yeah.
But if I thought it sucked, I tell people it sucks.
Yeah. I've been pretty evil sometimes on my reviews. In fact, I've had companies call me with the director of communications and crying, going, "You're killing us on Twitter." And I'm like, you launched a crappy product. And I've told my audience, and they agree with me. But yeah, you are right. I mean, one thing that's interesting to me about the Chris Voss Show experiment is there are still people listening to old podcasts. And this is what surprised me in the like year and a half I took off to take care of my dog, was people were still downloading these bloody things and listening to them. And I'm like, I'm not even active, and there's people still listening to them. There's people still watching videos from 2011 of product reviews I did.
Yep.
And for a while, I had to quit putting the price in my videos, because then I get comments like 3 years later, people going, "You're so stupid. It's $14.99 on Amazon." You're just like, you realize that video's like 4 years old.
Right.
But they're still watching it, and they're still making buying decisions. Like even the phone, the secondary market, there's people still watching like Galaxy Note 3 videos. And you're just like, really? Who's watching? And so the power of that residual thing where people will go back and listen to your whole library of stuff because, I don't know, if they have no life or they're suicidal, I don't know.
It is kind of amazing. And, both of you and I both do a lot of tech stuff, and, a lot of podcasters are not in this space. They're doing help shows. They're doing business shows. It runs the gamut from basket weaving to zebras. I mean, it's the full scope.
So, damn it, I was going to do a zebra show.
But if you think about just from a tech side, you and I both are going to be in there. You're in Vegas. I'm coming to Vegas for CES, and we're going to be talking with vendors, and some of the stuff we're going to wrinkle our nose at, and some of the stuff we're going to want to go buy. But it's just like you, because for me and for my audience, I put that in a different feed. I put that in a special feed that they can get as a video podcast. It's all these separate interviews. It's incredible. Like you said, people go back, and we typically average about 200 interviews at CES. Again, we put those out separately in a special feed. They're not put in my regular audio show feed. And we do about 60 million views of that stuff every year. And it's just, it's incredible, the staying power. I call it the gift that keeps on giving. It's, and that's why vendors beg us to come back and see them year after year. I actually make them come see me now. I actually make them come to the booth. But,
I've actually told my family, I'm like, if I pass away, somebody make sure they get into my account that has the YouTube checks, because they'll probably keep going. I don't know, 10 years after I'm dead.
Right.
The residual checks from YouTube. So the other thing I think that keeps people from podcasting, I see a lot of what's the right word? Predate. Just a lot of people that are really like, oh, I don't know, I've got to go buy expensive microphones, I've got to go buy expensive soundboards, and I got to do all this stuff. It's not, you can scale up as you go. I
Right.
mean, in my opinion, especially if you don't have a lot of money to spend, or you're not sure if you want to spend that kind of money to go in. So tell us, I mean, what are some of the easy ways to get in, and what do you really have to have as opposed to, what's the nice thing to have when you're really getting going?
Well, I started my show when I was in a hotel room in Texas. I went across to Walmart and picked up a 1495 LabTech microphone. It was the worst microphone ever. But today, you have these great choices. The ATR 2100. It's a USB or XLR mic. It's $40. It's a good starter mic. As a matter of fact, a lot of podcasters have been podcasting with that mic for years, and it plugs directly into the computer. You don't have to have a mixer board or anything else, and you can download for free Audacity. I'm not necessarily a big Audacity fan. I use Adobe Audition, but there's lots of audio recording softwares out there. Audacity's free.
Mhm.
That's really, from a hardware standpoint, really all you need. You don't need much more than that. So really for $50, you can have what you want. Now, my studio, I got multi-camera set up here. I got a TriCaster. I've got a lot of money in my studio.
I can tell by the mic. That's a nice looking mic.
Yeah, this is a $1,300 mic from
I got
Blue.
mic envy.
But again, if you listen to this mic and compare it to an ATR 2100, the delta is subjective.
Mhm.
So, there's again, Blue makes the the Zeti, I think. There's a
Yeti,
whole
bro.
the Yeti. I don't necessarily recommend that unless you're doing a show with 2 or 3 people. It's always better to have each person on their own mic.
Mhm.
And if you're going to do a show with a co-host, maybe that's where you go buy a mixer. You go online. Now, I'll just say this: friends don't let friends buy Behringer. There's lots of great products out there, but that's one product line I don't recommend at all. But then if you're having a co-host, you might be looking at maybe $200 to get started, a cheap
Uh-huh.
mixer board and a couple of mics, or if you're going to do Skype, you're going to have people Skype in. There's
Yeah.
lots of options. Google Hangouts, which you're doing here today,
Yeah.
that's an option too.
YouTube Live.
Yeah.
One thing I really love about YouTube Live is, of course, I have a YouTube channel, so there's monetization that way, and that actually, I don't know that the podcasts make a lot of money. I mean, certainly someone who sees an iPhone video or whatever, that thing goes through the roof views wise, but we're rebuilding the podcast, so hopefully that will change over time. But for me, I'm using YouTube Live, and I love it because it records my video, records my audio. And so it'll go up on YouTube. And so then it's saved there. And then what I do is I download the video from YouTube once it's done. And then I put it into Camtasia. I strip off the audio so that I can feed it into your guys' service for iTunes and Google Play. And a TuneIn app gets it now. And so then I have the audio to go there. And then it's hosted on YouTube. And so what's great is on my WordPress, I can put in the embed of the YouTube video to autoplay when people come to the WordPress. And then, of course, inside with your guys' plugin, it has the distribution. And I just love it. It's so great. It takes care of everything for me. I wish I could send video to Google Play, but I guess they don't do video.
Yeah, I think they're primarily audio. I don't think I ever submitted a video podcast over there. So, I do my podcast both audio and video. So there's actually an RSS feed of the video, but that comes at a price because
Mhm.
video is so big. You have to upload that, and it has to be served just like the audio file does. Now, fortunately, I've got a podcast company that I can use as a backdrop to upload that, but it definitely can be expensive if you're going to be doing a video podcast. So like you said, the way you're doing it is even, it's kind of, you've got, what do you have? You probably have a mic of some sort, or maybe just a webcam. What are you using for your?
I'm normally using my Blue Yeti Pro mic, but I got an update that has somehow thrown its driver, and I can't seem to get it to stabilize. So I'm using the Logitech mic, which isn't quite as good, but it gets there. But
Yeah.
I'm actually using Logitech's new 4K 4K webcam, and it's just beautiful. It's like butter
Yeah,
when
your
it comes to
picture,
the thing.
your
The
video is
audio's not
awesome.
quite as good as my Yeti Pro, but like I say, I'm having some technical difficulties here lately, so I'm just kind of punting. But the thing I learned too is I talked to a lot of people about my podcast, and I used to send with your guys' service the video to iTunes because iTunes will do video. And then once I picked up Google Play, they're like, no, we're not going to play nice. And so I just went, you know what? Everybody would come to me. I said, what do you think of the show that you're listening to? And they're like, well, I don't ever watch your videos, Chris. I go around the house and do chores and do whatever. And so I listen to you. And really, when you look at this mug, I mean, seriously, do you want to look at this mug for an hour and a half?
Me too.
So, I can't blame him. So it became pretty obvious that listening is more important to them than watch. Even people that watch my YouTube videos, half the time they tell me, they go, yeah, we don't really watch your mug on camera. We just listen.
And what I found of my audience, about 70% listen, 30% watch,
Yeah.
which is kind of an interesting dynamic in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But, why do I do live? I do YouTube Live and Facebook Live. I do that because I have a little bit of interactivity with the audience when I'm live, and they're providing me some feedback or making comments. So for me, that's a little bit of entertaining addition in that I don't have to be here alone just doing the show by myself solo. I've got some people that are actually listening and making comments and providing me feedback. So that, it almost gives you that kind of almost a little bit of radio feel. But for my first 700 episodes, I was audio only in the studio with no audience integration. So when I added video, now you've been doing video for years. So the thing that you have to remember, that I have to remind myself every day is that when we're describing something, so as an example, here's a little Wi-Fi stick that I'm holding in my hands, and it's got an antenna that pops up. And so, if I'm describing something on the show, or if I'm showing something on video, I just show it, and people say, oh yeah, I see what he's talking about. But if people are listening and they're only listening, we have to remember to describe it to them, because they're gonna be like, what is he talking about? I don't understand what he's trying to impair. So
that's a good point. I wonder if I'm doing that or not doing that. I'm probably not.
You got to remember the listeners that are listening. You can, because I would get hate mail. I'd like, Todd, you showed that thing. How am I supposed to know what you're showing? Because I would say, oh, look at this, guys. And they would be like, the video audience would be like, oh, cool. But the audio audience would be like, what is he showing? So
I just be like, well, you better just get off your butt and watch the show, darn it.
Well, again, some people listen, some people watch. So don't forget about the audio audience. You have to be descriptive for them, because again, we're in their head. We're not feeding the eyeballs.
And I think, this is my personal opinion, but distribution is a really big deal in sharing your podcast and trying to get and basically put it out there and share it out there. I remember years ago, a friend of mine, he got to like 100 or 200 podcasts. And I said, so many people listen to your podcast? He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, you did 200 shows? You don't know if anyone's listening or not. And so then he went in to look at it. And I think he was doing his stuff on YouTube, or I don't know where he was doing it. But it turns out 10 people were listening every episode. And some of those 10 people were the 4 people that were on the show every week, and probably them re-listening to the show afterwards.
That's like discouraging.
Yeah. And I'm just like, you did 200 shows and you didn't ever like think to check your stats. And then, I see people, they don't share their stuff on, Facebook or Twitter or whatever. I mean, when we do a show, I hammer the crap out of that thing in distribution. You're going to hear about it on Twitter for like 6 months.
Yeah.
I'll tag people so that their audience can see the show and they'll do the thing. But distribution is a huge thing. And you can't just, to my opinion, you can't just one-off your show or be like, okay, well, I tweeted the show link. There we go. You've got to get what I call saturation, where you've got to get it talked about. You got to get it passed out. You've got to get things going. You've got to, like, I'm constantly now advertising the iTunes show. I'm constantly doing the asking for subscriptions on Twitter, Facebook, Google Play, or Google Plus. Constantly, pushing it out there, trying to get that distribution. And so one thing I just advise people to do is check your stats. And that's what I love about your thing. I get my email every morning or every night, whenever it comes in. I'm like, who's watching, who's listening, who's downloading, sort of thing. And it's real important for people to focus on that, because you can't just build it and they come. You got to tell people about it.
I think I talked about, I did this presentation at Podcast Movement, and actually I redid the presentation on International Podcast Day that really talks about the things you have to do to build a show. And so many podcasters today are doing exactly what you just said. They're creating the show, they're putting it out there. They may say something on Facebook or on Twitter, but what they really are failing to do is to truly build engagement and doing the things they need to build authority. So if you're a podcaster and you're in a small town or even a big town, you need to be reaching out to radio, to TV. You need to be going to events where your content is associated with. There's a whole bunch of stuff you have to do. Blogging, I feel it's important that podcasters blog on a regular basis. So you feed the beast. You're giving them something to read on days you're not doing a show. Mm-hmm. It's just a whole stack of things. Maybe even write a book. You have to build authority, and until you build authority, you're not going to get people saying, "Hey, look at Todd," or "Look at Chris." Chris, you've built authority over years. I've known stuff that you've done for a long time, and I trust the stuff that you say. So the key again is you got to build this whole stack of things. You just can't create the content. You have to put yourself out there in a much bigger way.
I started video blogging in 2009 because I saw the future. Biggest problem was getting it downloaded for people, and podcasts really weren't popular back then as much as they are now. And so I started video thing, and if for the first year, it just seemed like I was talking into space. And if it wasn't for Google Analytics that could say, hey, people are actually coming and playing these videos. If it wasn't for that, I would have given up, because I was just like, I don't know what's going on. Like, no one's leaving comments. No one's talking to me. And Google Analytics were the only thing I had back then, where I was literally just posting the videos onto YouTube back in the day, or onto my WordPress and uploading the file into my WordPress cache database, whatever. But
if you think about it, Chris, when I launched my show, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no YouTube. None of that existed yet. Wow. MySpace was on the outs because they had gotten sued. So they were not MySpace, but MySpace was on the decline. Napster was on its way out. So most of us, when we started in those early days, we had no choice. We had to do the grind on our blogs and everything else. And we understood the value then of that organic traffic that not only Google drove, but getting out there and, getting the word out. So today, there's no excuse not to have a successful show, because look at all the stuff you've got to be able to use, all these great tools to promote it. I think the bigger problem with most podcasters is they just don't build enough authority. Who are you, and why should I listen to you? If a listener has to ask that question, you probably have lost them. So you got to be able to say, well, I've done this, this, and this, and this. I work in the field. I'm an expert. Here's why I'm the expert. But a lot of podcasters do shows for fun too. So those guys that were doing that show, they were doing it more for themselves than for an audience.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that, and there's different ways to monetize now. I mean, I've seen some shows that are monetized. Even Sam Harris's show is monetized on Patreon, or partially monetized on Patreon. These people can go to Patreon and set up accounts over there. I don't really do any advertising per se on my show. I probably should. get off my butt now that I'm getting back into it. I know a lot of people will use different affiliate links like audible.com or GoDaddy or different things like that.
The advertising piece is interesting. Adam Curry, who is the Podfather, podcasting along with Dave Weiner. Adam has a purely donation show. That's all he takes. It's a donation model. They show that they do it no agenda. They do it very successfully. They bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Wow.
In donations. But they also do a 3-hour or 2.5-hour podcast twice a week. That's heavily produced, and they've researched, and they probably got 20 hours of work to do that 2.5-hour show. So for them, it's a regular job. Really, their show is the job. Where on shows like mine, I've had GoDaddy as a sponsor since 2004. I have to meet my numbers every month on the number of new people buying their accounts. And I get paid on a hybrid model. I get a base plus so much per account. So that works for me. Other podcasters are doing a pure CPM model where they get paid X number of dollars per 1,000 listeners. No matter how you monetize your show, you have to build an audience to be able to have enough volume of listeners to make it happen. So you think about Patreon, if you get 10% of your audience if I could get 10%, Chris, if I could get you figure this out, and we'll make millions together. If you can figure out how to get 10% of our audiences to contribute on a Patreon, if I could just get 10% to give $5 a month, oh my God, I could hire like 5 people for this show, So it is, and some people will donate and most won't.
Yeah, I probably should have a donation button. Those of you who want to donate right now can go to PayPal.net.
Yeah,
but
I do that.
I need to probably focus on that some more. But the one thing I want to tell people, and you can tell me if I'm wrong if I'm here, but I think the most toughest part of building a podcast is just starting. Just do the shows, lay down the foundation, do the shows. Don't worry if they're right. Don't worry if they're perfect. You're going to make mistakes through this whole thing. But the hardest part is to sit and do a show and then keep doing a show and keep coming up with new content. One of the hard parts I used to have back in the day when I was trying to do mine was getting people to come on and then getting the technical aspects of it, whether you're using Skype or whether you're using Google Hangouts, YouTube Live now. But still, the hardest part for me was getting guests. And I have a big enough mouth and enough idiot brain thought to ramble on for an hour and a half. But having people that are interesting to me, I kind of have that weird nature like, what's his name, King, the old CNN interviewer. I'm always interested and curious about who people are and what make them tick and what they're doing in life and why they're doing it and why that makes sense, because I've never thought of doing it. And the interesting aspect of meeting new people and learning new things is just engaging to me. And hopefully it is to my audience. And I try and bring on cool guests and dig out of my guests, hopefully cool tips. And to me, just do the podcast, start the podcast, do an hour video rambling on. But what's really great is it's really flipped now where people love podcasts. They love coming on as guests. They love guesting. In fact, you and I get inundated with these PR agencies that are just slamming us for CES and everything.
Crazy.
And it never occurred to me. And then one day recently when I started redoing this, I'm like, why don't I ask them to have their CEO of XYZ company, this crap they're spamming me, why don't I ask them to come on? Turns out a lot of these PR emails that I've been getting, I can flip them into podcast guests. Yep. And they're really interesting guests. And that's what their PR agencies want anyway. They're like, will you please talk to our CEO? Yeah, we're just trying to get them. And so what's great is I can bring them on and they're interesting.
And once you do, you've made a connection and they will recognize you, and you go to the show, they'll welcome you into their booth, and they'll show you stuff that they won't show other vendors and other PR people. I'll be honest with you, I have a love-hate relationship with PR firms.
You-
They are the ultimate gatekeepers. If you can get through the gate and
Mhm.
get access to the key people at those companies and have that person's contact email address and can go around them,
Mhm.
that can turn into a sponsorship. That can turn into, again, it's a gift that keeps on giving. I'm sure you get tired of the boxes that arrive at your house. I've got a stack in the garage of stuff that comes unsolicited, and people say, you haven't done a review?" I said, "Did you email me? You just sent me something. I don't even know what it is. I haven't opened the box." So, you know, I'm not into so am I going to get rich over getting an $80 hub to review? No, but it's that kind of stuff that you're going to end up getting a lot of once you make these connections, depending on which field you're in. And for us, it's electronics, but making those connections and then turning that into a sponsor. Once you do that, if you love a product, then turn it into a sponsorship and then get paid for doing that promotion.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, of course.
I mean, sometimes you just got to ask, but then you got to build the shows, you got to do the shows, and then what's nice is if you're having guests on, you don't have to, I don't have to come up with stuff to do for an hour. I can talk to someone engaging and interesting like you. I can delve into your mind and share it with our audience base, and then they get that information. They can do with what they want. But yeah, I hear so many people that will say to me, and I get this in entrepreneurism as well. They're like, "Well, I'm just really trying to spend a lot of time preparing to do a podcast." And you're like, "What is there to prepare? Just do one. Start it."
Episode 10 will not sound like episode 1, and episode 20 will not sound like episode 10. You have to start and do it. Find your voice, find your battle rhythm. Some of my early podcasts, oh my God, Chris, I played AC/DC as an intro to the show. Totally illegal. A whole bunch of stuff I did in the early days. I just cringe, but it's because I had to learn.
Yeah. It's how you learn. In fact, I'm getting doxxed on YouTube now with if one swear word shows up in a video, I'm getting the scampi monetized, and of course they flip it on review, but their new bot's out of control with that business. But yeah, I mean, you just have to learn, and you learn the good, bad, and ugly. But it's just one of those things. Like what is it? You're not really an expert in anything until you invest 10,000 hours in it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And podcasting is the same way. And but now it's really great. Everyone loves podcasts. Two things that I'm trying to get done, and I've started them, but I'm trying to work on them, is building community. One of the ways that I've really failed in being an influencer, and you wouldn't think that an idiot like me, look by this, but not only building an audience, but building a community around that audience, a community that is very vibrant around your brand. And so I recently started a Facebook group that I've got to put all the people who've been on the podcast for. And then I've started the Chris Voss Show appreciation group, where I can have fans of the show and put them into a group where they can have a community where they can talk about whatever this stupid crap is I do on the podcast. And they can have that community. I can have future guests on that have been on before, and they make a great deep thing. But one thing I'm getting that's really nice is the people I've been having on the podcast have actually started referring people to the podcast to be on the show, which is helping me fill the calendar of quality stuff. And that's been really nice.
Yeah, and this is where I've always done solo shows, and then the show that I do with Rob Greenlee, obviously there's two of us, we have a guest periodically, but for me to schedule guests being in Hawaii is just absolute pain because of the time deltas. And so that's why primarily I've always done a solo show. But I think from your standpoint, a lot of podcasters, also new podcasters, struggle to find guests.
Mhm.
And so they may have to start to be in the beginning doing a solo show and grow it into an interview show as they gain those contacts. But one thing about the community aspect that you talked about is I travel quite a bit. So whatever city I go to, I'll announce a couple of weeks ahead of time. So I'm going to be in Chicago this like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm going to have a meetup on Wednesday. Now, maybe 5, 6, 7 people show up, but we'll buying pizza, we'll hang out, drink a few beers, and I do that in every city that I go to and have a little meetup. And sometimes I go to a city multiple times in a year, and we don't do a meetup every time. But that's just a way to kind of build the community as you're growing. Now, for you, you're going to have a lot of these folks who are going to be coming into Vegas for CES. You know, you ought to do some sort of a meetup somewhere where you know put some money on the bar or whatever, and have a little bit of a not only the listeners, but also have the guests that have been on and continue to build those relationships.
We'll probably
And
be having something. I control about 8 meetup groups here in Las Vegas, and I anytime I can pick one up, I pick one up and I take it over. And the podcast actually is the sponsor for the meetup groups. But yeah, it's one thing I've been doing to get a lot of guests that's been working out really well is I joined a lot of Facebook groups, and I was in some already with some good social media people. And so I just posted in there, hey, man, I'm looking for guests. You want to come on the show? And I think another thing that people fret about when they're going to start a podcast or they're thinking about starting a podcast is, oh, what's the name of it? Or what's the scope of what I'm going to be doing?
mm-hmm.
And I remember struggling with that back in 2009. I'm like, what do I want to do? And I like social media, but I don't like it that much. I don't think I can talk about this for 20 years. And so I fretted about, what I wanted to do and what silo, I wanted to do of a category. And then finally it just hit upon me. I don't know if somebody said it to me because I was really struggling with it. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to call it the Chris Voss Show. And the beauty of that is when people go, what is the Chris Voss Show about? I can go, whatever Chris Voss wants to talk about.
That's right.
So over the years, I've actually kind of meandered with the subject where I kind of did social media. I talked about entrepreneurism because I was fresh out of my companies. And so I was talking about some of the things that made me successful as an entrepreneur. And then sometimes we've gotten into some politics. Sometimes we've gotten into, we kind of moved from social media because after a while it just felt like it was beaten like a dog. And so then I moved into kind of tech reviews. And then recently with the new relaunch of the show, I've just said, you know what? I just want to talk about anything and everything because I'm kind of sick of tech. I'm kind of sick of talking about the latest iPhone.
Right.
And the other thing is too, is I don't want people to know what they're tuning into anymore. Like they can tune into my show now and they can meet people like you who are technical podcasters and gods of podcasting that have all this great knowledge and information. They can tune in tomorrow and they can find we're going to talk about Zen. We're going to talk about how to rebuild your life and some of this ethereal sort of life stuff. And then tomorrow, I don't know, we might have somebody on that's going to be talking about something else. And so hopefully the reason they're tuning in is because I'm somewhat engaging, entertaining, or I'm an idiot, and every now and then I'll pull some good joke out of the works. But hopefully I'll always have interesting guests, and people never know what's going to come. And I think I like my format a lot better. I think people like it better because now they never know what I'm going to be tuning into, and they don't know exactly what's there, and so they can't have that presupposition of like, oh God, he's going to talk about phones again. So I've been really liking the new direction we're going, and the fact that with the Chris Voss Show, I can do whatever I want and I can change as I want.
You're doing the show for you as well as the audience, so it's keeping it interesting for you, and it'll grow as you grow. And my mom and I did a podcast for a short period of time after we lost my dad, and basically the show was almost like therapy. We were both talking about the stuff we were going through. So I think there's a season for everyone, and I think what you've done here with your show name and how you've designed it, it sounds actually I'm kind of envious. You can switch up topics as you want, although. I don't know if I'd ever do a political show because you immediately piss off at least 50% of the people, no matter what. So,
yeah,
but yeah, it is it's fun, I think, to be able to have,
yeah.
to change it up on a week to week basis if you want to.
Yeah. And even if you want to do politics, I mean, I look at the Young Turks and what they've done.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I mean, they
Yeah.
built, I saw some recent funding rounds that they
Huge.
did. Didn't they do like
Huge.
$100 million, $10 million funding round
And
or
they
something? And
started off as a little no name
yeah,
podcast and
yeah.
blew. Yeah.
I remember watching the early parts of the show and I'm like, who's this Sanctig or whatever his
Yeah.
name is? And I actually like him, respect him, but I was just like, who are these guys? And that's going nowhere. And they were talking politics and it was kind of interesting there. It seemed like for a lot of years, politics just was like no one wanted to talk about. It was just like
It was
whatever.
boring.
And yeah, it was boring. And I used to watch his show, The Young Turks, come up, and I'm just like, I'm not really into this. But now there's even this whole resurgence in politics, and of course, news companies nowadays are getting funding more than they ever have, and sometimes you just never know where some of this stuff is going to kick out. Even for me, I mean, people are still watching. It just still amazed people watch videos from 2012 and they'll leave comments.
Yeah,
And I'm just like,
it's bizarre,
really?
isn't it? You're like, really?
Really?
You watch that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I'll get an email too, be like, hey, that product's gone version 3. I'm like, yeah, did you look at the date on the video on that?
yeah. Yeah. And you bring up a really good point that a lot of people need to remember. You really want to build on your own WordPress, and of course, using your guys' service, you can integrate that, get the distribution. I've seen so many wannabe podcasters, so many video marketers lately. They keep joining these services that are
Yeah.
pop-up startups, and they have a high capacity to go out of business. In fact, there was one. You might remember a couple years ago, and I was bashing it because all my social media friends are going to it, and they're like, "This is going to be huge." In fact, I had a couple social media snake oil salesmen telling me to close my YouTube channel and to put all my investment into this company when it came to content, and they were out of business in a year and a half, and all of that stuff is just erased. It's gone. It's dead.
The only way I'm losing geeknewscentral.com is if I forget to renew the domain name and some scalper gets it, or I die and my family doesn't continue it, and that's their choice. After that, I don't care anyway. I'm gone. But with my brand, I have 15,000 blog posts on there that I have painstakingly built Google ranking, and I get between 40 and 200,000 hits a day on my website.
Yeah.
For Google searches, and how many people ask me, how do you keep a sponsor, the same sponsor, for 13 years? I got new people coming in the door all the time. I got new people coming in to listen to the podcast. Not all of them stay subscribed, but enough do, and enough react to the sponsor that I meet my numbers. So in the end, that's what it's really about with the sponsor. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I had not been, and now I pay people to blog. My blogging bill on a monthly basis is about $700-800, but I'm happy to have someone else do the writing, and it frees me up to do other things. So that's where it's a force multiplier. See, but in the beginning, I was 5-6 articles a week. I was doing the grind. Last night, I did 5 articles last night myself.
It's amazing to me. You just have to. Yeah, it's just like eating an elephant. You got to start, and you just got to take it one bite at a time. I mean, even now, I'm surprised when I wake up on YouTube, and I'm like, the other day, I was like looking at, I'm like, 3,300 videos or something like that. I think it's 3,300 blog posts I have, and then I think it's 3,000 videos. But the videos have almost 50 million minutes of views on
That's
YouTube.
amazing.
And they only started counting those, I think it was 2012, 2013. So I already have plenty of stuff in the can that doesn't count in those 50 million, because they didn't start counting it till that time. But to think that people watch 50 million minutes, it's freaking insane.
It is.
And you just, and I don't focus on that. I didn't sit down and go, I'm going to do 3,000 freaking things. I didn't even, that was a great idea. But you just have to start. You've got to go through it. You've got to not only produce great shows, but you got to focus on your distribution so that you get people hearing about it, and promoting your wares, and then of course chasing sponsors. Let's talk about sponsors, because you and I both love GoDaddy, evidently.
Yeah, I've been with them for a long time, and they've been good to me. And when they screw up, I let them know as well. I'm very vocal with their marketing and executive team over there. So we've had a few rough times, some stupid stuff they've done, but for the most part, I've been very, very happy with them. And matter of fact, their sponsorship of my show is, if there was a Guinness Book of World Records for the longest continuous sponsor, they would own it.
That's awesome.
So I'm really grateful, for what they do, and I hope people use my promo codes. That's what really it's all about. My success on my sponsorship with them, I only get measured on new client acquisitions, brand new customers. So if someone renews a product, I get no credit for that from years past. So that's why I have to continuously have new people picking up their services. So they've treated me well and done good. So I again, if they do something that's messed up, I'm the first one to email them. Or if I have a customer that's had problems, I run it up the flagpole. But yeah, they've been good. They've really been good to me. But
I don't know. I meet these people that have problems with GoDaddy, and I've never had a problem with GoDaddy. I don't know if there's any real faux pas that they've done, but they've been the greatest. And and maybe it's because of how I approach them. That's the only thing I can figure out between all the people who tell me they hate GoDaddy. I've called them up, and they have bailed me some of the biggest messes that I've made. And I make some really bad messes, like I won't back up the blog, or I didn't used to back up the blog before I reset the database, or before I installed a plugin, or before I installed an update, and the whole thing would go 500 or 404.
Right.
And then I'd already permanentized it by rebuilding the database or whatever. And they're just like, you just really sunk this thing. And I've been hacked before with bad plugins. And they have bailed me out like so many times for the stupid stuff I've done.
People have to also realize, and I think a lot of times happens, Chris, is people will buy the absolute bottom barrel price product they have. And then they'll run a site that gets, all of a sudden starts getting huge traction. Well, okay, so if you're paying $4.95 for a hosting account and you're getting 100,000 hits a month on that site, it might be time to upgrade your hosting plan a little bit to something a little more robust.
Yeah.
Like I said, my hosting bill every month's $340 some, but I'm on dedicated servers, the whole 9 yards to be able to handle the load. So I think sometimes people want a lot. They just don't maybe buy the right product. Yeah. And sometimes if there's an issue, they have to fix. But for the most part, I haven't run into too many issues either.
And they seem to have really good uptime compared to some of the other services that are out there.
And one thing's for sure is they're not being run by some teenager in a basement like a lot of the hosting companies are.
Well, it's interesting too. Whenever I call GoDaddy and I've done something really bad, or a plugin's gotten hacked through, and it's really ugly, they've helped me, and sometimes I've just begged and pleaded and said, I'm just a stupid idiot. And there have been times where they should charge me, or they've offered to charge me a buttload of money to fix the mess that I made. And a little begging, crying, pleading, groveling, and they'll be like, we'll just help you. Like I remember one Christmas I got hacked through one of the plugins, and they made a really bad mess. And they said to me, I think it was going to be 150 or 75 for one of their guys to go clean it up. And they went, after a little bit of groveling and begging and pleading, and it's Christmas time. It was Christmas Day. Christmas freaking Day, I think it was. So the night before Christmas, or Christmas Day, And I said, man, it's Christmas. I've cleaned the bank out. And they go, you know what, Chris? You're a nice guy, and we're just going to fix this for you. Just realize this is normally a $150 service, but it's Christmas. This is going to be our gift to you. And it was the nicest Christmas gift ever because my site was like down. And so I've just had great stuff, great customer service with GoDaddy. And so when you hear these horror stories, I'm like, what did you do? Did you call them up, start being a jerk from the
Well,
get-go?
that's what happens a lot of the times. People call in and they're just blasting this poor
Yeah,
customer support rep. It's not his fault.
yeah,
There to help. It's like, okay, so you ever fly and lose a bag? The airline's not deliver the bag. You're standing there at the carousel and you are angry. You are like, where is my bag? The world is ending, right? But
yeah.
between the time you walk from the carousel over to the last baggage office, you better walk in there and smile and be nice and treat those people with respect, because if you walk in there and are a jerk,
Mhm,
you'll see your bag in 3 weeks. If you're in there and be nice and compliment them and thank them, and even though you're boiling inside,
mhm.
you'll get your bag a lot sooner. So it's the
Yeah,
same thing with customer support reps.
yeah,
It's often not their fault.
yeah.
They're just trying to help.
They
So,
they just do a great job. I mean, I've always there was one time where I think I was at 300 or 500 posts that were on the Chris Voss show where I faux pas the database. I didn't back it up because I don't know, I like living dangerously, I guess. I'm an idiot. And I faux pas it so bad where basically it was all gone. Like, and I think back in the day I was self-hosting everything too. So it was gone. And they said you can probably bring it back because the database, you reset the database, but they go, you can probably get it back, but you probably need to pay somebody about $1,000 to get it back.
oh,
And I was just wrecked. And so I begged, cried, pleaded, and threw myself on the mercy of GoDaddy. And the gal says, look, she goes, I'm technically we don't do this, but I will email you the steps that you have to do. And keep in mind, you have to do these steps perfectly. If you screw this up, all your content is gone. It's gone. There'll be no recovery. You screw this up, done. But I'm going to send you the instructions. We don't normally do this because we charge for this, but we'll send you the instructions and hopefully you get your stuff back. So I saved probably what would have been $2,000 or $3,000 in some tech guy to be able to fix this stuff. They sent me this stuff. I followed her directions, got all my stuff back, and like anytime somebody says crap about GoDaddy, I'm like, I don't know what you guys do when you guys call. They they build my dumb ass out of so many different things over the years, and hacking and stuff. It's just I love GoDaddy.
well, it's and everyone has a different experience, but
Yeah,
yeah. And if they do something dumb, I'll tell them that they've done something
yeah,
dumb. And they're just a company. They make mistakes too. So,
yeah.
but anyway, it's been a good relationship. But yeah, sponsorship wise, I think a big part of it is if you have a relationship with a company and you can tell them when something has went sideways
Mhm.
and they don't hammer you for it, or you're willing to just tell it the way it is. My audience appreciates it when I tell them something. Oh man, this went wrong and this is what happened, blah blah blah. you know they understand. World is not black and white, and everything can't
Yeah.
be perfect all the time. So
And I think it's important to have those, like you say, because I'll have people on YouTube that will troll me, or I'll have people, somewhere else, Twitter, whatever, they'll troll me and they'll be like, oh, you're one of those reviewers that you just get stuff for free. And so you say great things about it and everything's rosy. And I'll be like, nope, here are the podcasts or here are the YouTube videos where I have trashed the company in the reviews. And like I say, I think I had GoPro back in the day. It was the GoPro 3 or something that when they launched it, they shipped it knowing there was a software problem. Well, I don't want to say they knew there was a software problem, but they knew after it had been shipped that they had a problem, and they were still selling them on the shelves. And it was one of those things where like, well, people buy it. Let's see if they discover the problem. And so I trashed them on YouTube. And within about 2 days, I had the director of communications calling me going, please, you're killing us. How do we fix this? And so what's great is being able to have those where I can show those to people and go, no, I don't do Pollyanna reviews. I try and be as honest and forthright as I possibly can. It's good to have that sort of audience, that thing, because usually whoever's trolling me will go look at that and be like, oh, okay, Chris Voss is for real. And the, authenticity, like you say, is super important, and having that loyalty to your audience that, I don't work for the review companies. I don't work for, technically my sponsors. They do sponsor the show, but I don't really work for them. For me, I work for my audience. I am beholden to my audience. And without them, I'm pretty much nothing. So when it comes to who am I working for today, when I'm on the show, it's for the audience, because if they don't listen, if they're not entertained, if they're not interested, then I'm pretty much going nowhere.
What I've done on stuff that I've reviewed in the past, if it's something that's just like, I get it and said, this is a piece of crap. I will email the person that has sent that to me and said, listen, I'm not having a good experience here. Here's my issues, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it may be. I'm going to, this is what I've written up. Here is the link to that. Do you have an engineer or someone that can address these issues, or do you have a fix in the pipeline? And that happens once in a while.
Yeah.
And I've actually had companies, come back and say, okay, we're going to send you an updated product. Can you hold? And I've actually gotten companies to fix stuff because I'm getting ready to shotgun blast them in the face. And that's, I feel as a reviewer, that's important for me to do too, is to be able to tell companies where a weakness is and give them an opportunity to fix it, because I'm about ready to cause sales to go down. Or no sales to occur. And sometimes it could be perception on my part where I thought something worked one way and it was actually saying, oh, no, you had to do this. I'm like, okay, you need to fix your documentation or.
Exactly. Like the instructions, like we had a product like that recently where they sent these cheap 2-page instructions. And I'm like, you really haven't given me the tools that I need to use your product and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, you're like me. There's a lot of yelling. In fact, Mossberg in his past did the same thing. I've heard some stories from companies that had Mossberg privately unload on them. And the stuff you don't see when the sausage is being made.
Yeah.
And he's pretty contentious. He's a pretty contentious guy. You don't piss off Mossberg.
Yeah, I haven't had to can too many articles, but once in a while something comes in, and but I was just like the other day, I got something I was pleasantly surprised. It was a relatively inexpensive item. I thought, oh, this is going to be junk. And I just was expecting it to be junk, and I got it and used it, and I was like, I abused it, and I was like, whoa, this thing is this is a great deal for a great price. And so I have those types of situations too that come in once in a while. You get this pleasant surprise that you're kind of like, I don't really want to review that. And they say, oh, we'll send it over anyway. Let us know. And I get the product and I'm looking at it. I'm like still having doubts, and then I'm using it and I'm like, oh, wow, this is awesome. So, so it goes both ways too.
Yeah. Now, Facebook, I know you put out your podcast on Facebook Live simultaneously.
I do. I put it on Facebook Live and YouTube Live both at the same time. And I actually stream via the actual YouTube Live platform versus doing Google Hangouts. I also stream to live stream as well. I don't know how much longer I'm going to do that now that they're then bought and that whole thing's changing over there. But yeah, I put 3 different places. And then, of course, then again, it's about distribution. I want to be everywhere the audience wants to be. I don't care how they get it, long as they get it. I don't care if they listen, watch. I don't care where they find it, long as they find it.
And Facebook is just launching a new thing with their Mentions app. They're calling it something else now. Facebook, is it Connector app or Connector, something like that? Creator, the Facebook Creator app is now the new Mentions app, or at least it is on iOS for now. It still Mentions on Android, but they're really going deeper into, and the app is designed for video creators, and they're really trying to compete with YouTube, of course,
Interesting.
and having YouTube creators. And I think that's going to be a really great opening for podcasts.
Well, YouTube's got some challenges right now on the monetization front. A lot of these big creators are getting demonetized, like you mentioned.
Mhm.
So if Facebook finds a way to monetize and make it a viable platform for some of these big creators where they can get paid and not get their content demonetized at the drop of a hat, I think that they'll do well. But Chris, when you are beholden upon another platform
Mhm.
to pay your paycheck, that's a precarious position to be in. You look at all these
Yeah.
YouTubers; that's their income, and then YouTube said, "Well, because some idiot did something stupid, we're going to tighten down the alagos," and all of a sudden now we're going to and another thing too is they're demonetizing stuff that shouldn't be demonetized.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's really going over the. I mean, I used to swear a lot in my videos. There was no repercussions, and then all of a sudden, I started getting demonetized on individual videos, and I'm like, and they're like, there's some swear words in there. I'm like, well, thanks for the heads up. I've been doing this for years, and never thought about it. And then now, like, every video is getting demonetized, and I have to go back and force it to review. And since a bunch of people have been yelling about it, my uploaded videos aren't getting demonetized, but every live video I do, like this one on the podcast, this one get demonetized in a day or two, and I gotta go do the review. And they always flip it, but I have learned I gotta try and stay off the swear words. But in the meantime, there's a lot of problems going on with YouTube, and I think there's going to be a shift here soon where something's going to come up, whether it's Facebook, and that's why I bring up this Facebook creators thing. I think Facebook has a really interesting thing now because so many YouTubers have gone to Patreon, and a lot of people are now starting to get more money from Patreon than they are from YouTube. And what that means is that makes it easier for me to move my show to a new platform because I'm not beholden to YouTube anymore for money. And hell, I know people right now, they're making way more money and they're actually not making anything on YouTube, but they're making a ton of money on their Patreon. And what YouTube doesn't realize, for all the stupid bungling that they've been doing over the past few years, they started back in 2012, 2013, where they basically re-engineered the algorithm to where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
Right.
And basically it was like, we're going to take the top guys and we're going to make sure they get all the stuff, and PewDiePie, he's getting everything nowadays when it comes to steering traffic towards him. Meanwhile, he's talking about Hitler using the N-word and everything else.
No, he's one of the ones I think that caused part of the demonetization thing because his stuff, yeah.
And meanwhile, the guys like me who used to get a lot of views, and now the rich get richer stuff has been going to them. So I think there's some shift here. I don't know what the new platform is going to be. I think Facebook might be a really good bet. Although no one trusts Facebook. I mean, that was the biggest thing. They tried to shop a lot of YouTube people back in the day, and YouTube people are like, no, you're like Twitter. You'll embrace this and then you'll bite us. We've seen this movie.
But and the problem with YouTube is my followers are not guaranteed to see my stuff.
I got totally screwed by the switch from the where people used to get my emails every day or every update, every upload. And then when they went to mobile, they just changed the whole notifications thing to a different thing. So now I have to do that whole bag on every show where it's like, make sure for mobile, you hit the mobile notification bell, and you're just like, And so, yeah, it definitely flips on you. But I think with patreon.com and this new Facebook creator app, I think they're going to go after YouTube more. And with the problems YouTube is having that are just so massive. I mean, years ago, I was even surprised what happened on Twitch. Speaking of podcasts, one thing that I've been seeing on Twitch TV is people doing podcasts over there
Yep.
now.
Yep.
And well, you and I agree that probably isn't the place to have the origin source for your stuff. It might be great to simulcast there, and make sure you put on your own domain. But there's people out that are starting to do well with podcasting over on Twitch.
I think again, it's I call it, you have a place where the mothership is, and then go out from there with all the content. If it's going to be on Facebook and they're going to have a creators page, great. I'll embrace it. I'll be on there. But every podcast, guess what I'm telling them? Hey guys, come back to geeknewscentral.com, subscribe to the show. So I'm always telling them where to come back to find the source material and where everything lives permanently at Facebook or YouTube or all these other groups decide they want to, make a change and not pay us anymore, which, has happened a lot. So
somebody was telling me, and you probably know this information, I don't want to take up your whole day, but somebody was telling me that iTunes might soon come out with a thing to actually tell me how much listening time went on with my podcast.
It's between now and probably December 15th, that update will come out. And it's going to only be for listen time in the podcast app on mobile.
So it won't tell me that mine was the one that got listened to as much?
It will. It'll tell you how long people listened in the mobile app, the podcast app from Apple on iOS.
But will that be for my show or just for all the shows they're listening to?
Your show will have in the Podcast Connect site for Apple. It'll be in your dashboard.
Cool.
Yeah. So
and will I get that through my Blueberry stats that I get?
They say they're going to provide an API at some point, but probably not until next year. So you'll actually have to log into your Apple account to see that. So we're excited. But of course, we're telling people, be careful what you wish for. It's going to be interesting to review that. Believe me, it's going to be the talk of the town as soon as they release it and people get to see it.
Yeah, because I'm always interested. I've been just amazed. Like I said, I took a good year and a half off from doing anything with podcasting. And I was just amazed because I kept seeing my Blueberry stats come in. I'm like, people are still listening to this crap?
Yeah.
Like I haven't even done a show for like a year and a half and people are listening to it. And that's kind of what brought me back into it. Was I was like, well, I guess if people are going to still listen to stuff I did years ago, I'll do it again.
I do a news show, so my stuff has a 96 to 100 hour shelf life. So I don't get a lot of back count, but I have people once in a while say, hey, I listened to episode 322. I'm like, dude, that was 8 years, 9 years. What? Why? Yeah. So yeah, it is kind of crazy. But Chris, thanks for having me on. I definitely appreciate it.
I love having you on, Todd, and you're welcome to come on anytime. Be sure to check out Todd. Todd, give us all your plugs so people can go to him and check them out.
So for the podcasting service, definitely go to blubrry.com, BLUBRRY.com. You can reach me there, Todd@blubrry.com. For my personal shows, you can go to geeknewscentral.com or newmediashow.com. Contact information is on the website, of course, but you can follow me on Twitter @geeknews.
There you go, guys. And you got to follow them and you can sign up for Blueberry. I love the service. I've had it for, I don't know, since 2013 or something, forever. And I couldn't do this podcast without it. And once you set it up, I don't have to mess with it again. I just go in, put in my link where it goes to GoDaddy, and it's done. Within an hour or two, I think it shows up on iTunes.
You'll have to sign up for affiliate programs so you can start making some.
I know. I need to do that. And for so many years, I'm like, hey, you do that. That's one of the 5,000 to-do lists on the thing. But I really should, especially after this show, huh?
We have the best affiliate program ever, and I'll tell you why. And this is really, truly an incredible deal. It's just like any other affiliate program. You get your, if they buy a $20 account, you earn $20. But for every dollar they spend with us through the life of the account, we keep track of that, and you get a bonus at the end of the year, each year, based on total volume of the customers that you brought to us. So we've got customers that get $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 checks at Christmas time for their bonus stuff. But yeah,
anyway. What am I doing? Why aren't I doing that? All right.
Definitely get signed up. But for those of you on a 30 days free, Blueberry 005 is the promo code. that I don't
There you
make
go.
any money on.
30 days free. And you know what? I mean, the price I'm paying, because I self-host at GoDaddy, is $5 a month.
Yeah.
It's like the greatest value of anything you can have for $5. It's
Yeah.
the best $5 you'll ever spend. And
Yeah.
then you of course host the stuff for 12. I think it's $12.95.
The media starts at 12, and it's based on the total storage you need each month. Bandwidth is unlimited.
Yeah, and that's I mean, it's such a great price for what stuff costs nowadays when
Yeah.
it costs to get in the business.
Yeah.
So go get yourself the accounts. Go get yourself. You know, you can use most laptops. Like most laptops, you can get away with their mics and their videos. Start making content. Start building it. Just start building it, and hopefully they'll come. Just do distribution. Make sure you tell people about the show.
Right.
Just don't do shows. And I actually had a company here in Vegas that was trying to get me to come down, and they're like, all these people watch your show, and I was looking at their YouTube views, and I'm like, the only people watching your show are you guys. Afterwards, it's like 2 views, and you guys have done hundreds of shows, and you've never. And they're like, no, people really listen. And I'm like, how do you know? And they go, well, they just do. And you're just like, just because you make something doesn't mean people tune in. Sorry.
That's right. Yep. Got to do the grind.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. I don't have a joke for that. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, audience. We certainly appreciate you guys. Be sure to give us a like, subscribe to us on YouTube, hit that bell notification, just like we talked about. So you get all the notifications on your mobile device for the ChrisVossShow.com. And be sure to go to iTunes, Google Play, and TuneIn apps so you can download, of course, and subscribe to the show. Be sure to tell your friends, neighbors, relatives, dogs, mistresses, wives, husbands, cockroaches. Did I leave anything out? You know, give the cockroaches in New York City flat something to do other than chew on you. I don't know.
That was good.
Hey, I'm trying to get as many listens as I can. These cockroaches, they got iPhones nowadays, really, when it comes down to it. Anyway, thanks to Todd for coming on the show, and appreciate you. And we'll see you guys all next time.